Give your eyes a rest, and let your mind wander. No screens, just sound and imagination. Let the story begin. The golden lights of Shanghai shimmered against the glass walls of the Li family mansion. Inside, the air was thick with elegant crystal chandeliers, expensive paintings, and a family whose name opened doors in every corner of the city. Li Wei and Li Chen were identical twins, born into this world of wealth and power. On the surface, they looked the same: sharp jawlines, deep brown eyes, and the kind of presence that made people stop and stare. But anyone who knew them closely knew they couldn't be more different. Li Wei was the responsible one, quiet, strategic, the kind of man who preferred reading contracts over attending parties. Li Chen, on the other hand, was a wildfire, charming, unpredictable, and forever chasing the thrill of the night. The only thing they had in common was the woman who would soon change everything. Her name was Yan Rue, daughter of a real estate tycoon. She was elegant, polite, and hopelessly devoted to Li Chen. The two had been engaged since their families agreed to merge business empires. It was a perfect arrangement on paper. But Li Chen didn't care for perfection. He cared for excitement. And Rue, with her gentle smile and soft-spoken words, couldn't keep his attention. When Li Chen abruptly left for business overseas, a vague excuse no one could quite verify, Rue was left waiting, loyal to a man who barely thought of her. The Li family insisted the engagement remain. And so, Li Wei stepped in. At first, it was just small things: taking her to family dinners in Chen's place, standing beside her at charity events, answering her calls when she needed her fiancé. Rue never questioned it. Why would she? The twins looked exactly alike, and her eyesight had been poor for years. Faces were a blur. She relied more on tone and presence than appearance. And in those moments, when she thought she was with Li Chen, she was actually with Li Wei. The rain drizzled softly over the campus courtyard, coating the stone pads in a glassy shimmer. Rue stood beneath the awning near the library steps, her white cane resting lightly in her hand. She always waited. That was the thing about loving Li Chen: patience was her only option. But the man who approached her that day wasn't Chen. "Sorry I'm late," Li Wei said, his tone calm and almost warm. He took her umbrella and held it over them, shielding her from the growing rain. Rue smiled faintly. She didn't notice the subtle difference in his voice or how his footsteps were steadier, less hurried than Chen's. They walked toward the cafe just off campus. The sound of rain tapping on the umbrella felt almost soothing. Wei asked about her classes, her health, her future plans. Chen never asked those kinds of questions. He was usually checking his phone, impatient to leave. Halfway through their coffee, she noticed something strange. Wei, whom she believed to be Chen, gently adjusted the scarf around her neck so it wouldn't slip. Chen never did small, careful gestures like that. Her brows knitted slightly, but she let it pass. Maybe Chen was just in an unusually good mood today. After their meeting, Wei guided her carefully to the family driver, opening the car door for her. "Get home safe," he said softly, stepping back into the rain. As the car pulled away, Rue sat quietly, her fingers resting on the edge of her scarf. Something about him today felt different. She didn't know it yet, but in that quiet moment, her heart had taken one step away from Li Chen and one step closer to Li Wei. 2 days later, Rue sat at her favorite corner table in the garden cafe. The winter air was crisp, but she liked the sound of the small fountain nearby. She always came here when meeting Chen, or at least the man she thought was Chen. He arrived without the sharp scent of cologne Chen usually wore. Instead, there was a faint trace of cedarwood and rain. "You're early," she said, smiling faintly as he slid into the seat across from her. "I had time today," he replied. His tone was calm, deep, steady. No rush, no edge of irritation she had grown used to. As they spoke, he asked her about the music she liked, her favorite novels, even her childhood memories. Rue tilted her head. Chen never asked these things. In fact, last week, when she had mentioned her favorite childhood song, Chen had brushed it off with a distracted nod. When she reached for her cup, his hand brushed hers, warm and steady, and then he did something strange. He guided the cup closer to her so she wouldn't have to lean forward. Chen never paid attention to details like that. It was subtle, but the way he spoke, the words he chose, even the rhythm of his breathing, it wasn't the same. Chen, she said slowly, tasting the name, as if testing it. Yes, his reply was instant, but there was the faintest pause before it, so small that someone with clear vision might have missed it. But Rui's ears were sharp. She forced a small smile, pretending to brush it off, but her heart beat faster. When the meeting ended, he walked her to the car again. Just as she was about to step inside, she asked, "Do you remember the place where we first met?" He froze for a second, too long for Chen. Then, in a smooth but slightly hesitant tone, he said, "Of course I do." She smiled as if satisfied, but the doubt had rooted itself deep inside her. Whoever was sitting across from her these past days was not the same Chen she had known for years. The following afternoon, Rui sat by the window in her family's library, a book open in her lap but her eyes unfocused. Her mind kept circling back to yesterday, the scent, the voice, the way he guided her teacup. She needed to know. When Chen called to invite her for lunch, she accepted immediately. They met at an upscale restaurant near the university district. Rui was dressed elegantly, but her mind was sharper than her smile. Halfway through the meal, she leaned forward casually and said, "Do you remember that winter trip we took to Harbin 3 years ago? The one where you got lost in the snow and I had to find you?" It was a lie. They had never gone to Harbin together. For a split second, she saw the flicker in his eyes, surprise, confusion, before he quickly covered it with a smile. "Of course," he said smoothly. "You were wearing that ridiculous red scarf." Her heart skipped. Chen hated red scarves. The real Chen would have scoffed at the mention. Later, as they walked back toward the exit, she tried again. "And after that, you promised to teach me how to drive, remember?" There was no promise like that either. She couldn't drive because of her vision. But instead of laughing it off like Chen always did, he simply said, "Yes, I remember." Too perfect, too agreeable. Outside, a gust of cold wind blew her hair across her face. He reached out to gently tuck it behind her ear, a gesture so tender it froze her in place. Chen had never touched her like that. As they parted ways, Rui's fingers tightened around her coat's collar. Who was this man wearing Chen's face? And why did he seem to know her better than the real one ever tried to? Li Wei stood alone on the balcony of the family penthouse, city lights flickering beneath him like distant stars. The weight of the past weeks pressed heavily on his shoulders. He wasn't just wearing his brother's face, he was living his life. When Chen disappeared without a word, leaving promises unkept and a fiancé waiting, Wei had made a choice. Not out of duty, but because he saw something in Rui that even Chen had overlooked. She deserves better than a reckless playboy, Wei thought bitterly. She deserves someone who cares, who listens. But playing Chen was a prison. Every smile, every word, every touch felt like a lie. And yet, when he was with Rui, when she looked up at him with trust and hope, Wei found himself wanting to be better, even if it was just for her. He clenched his fists. The truth was messy. He wasn't just filling in for his brother. Somewhere along the way, he'd fallen in love with the girl who couldn't see him clearly but saw his heart anyway. Yet the guilt haunted him. He was deceiving her. And deep down, he feared the moment she discovered who he really was. Would she hate him? Would she ever forgive him? Wei took a deep breath and stared at the skyline. "For now," he whispered, "I will protect her, no matter what it takes." The Li family mansion was buzzing with soft conversations and the clinking of fine china as Rui followed Li Wei through the grand hallway. She felt a strange mix of awe and tension. This world was dazzling but full of unseen battles. Near the ornate staircase, a familiar figure appeared. Lu Mai, dressed elegantly, her eyes sharp and unreadable. She was Li Chen's close friend, known for her boldness and charm. Lu Mai's gaze landed on Rui with a curious intensity. For a moment, silence hung between them before Lu Mai stepped forward, her voice low and serious. "Ruth," she said, "you should be careful. This world, it's not as kind as it looks. And she nodded toward Li Wei, "he's complicated. You don't want to get hurt." Rui met her eyes steadily. "Thank you for the warning. I'll keep it in mind." Lu Mai smiled faintly, a mixture of sympathy and something unreadable in her expression. "Just remember, Some battles are harder than they seem. As Lu Mai walked away, Rui felt a chill run down her spine. The warning was clear. Li Wei, noticing her silence, squeezed her hand gently. Don't let her words scare you. But Rui knew better. The city lights flickered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Li family penthouse, casting long shadows over the tense atmosphere inside. Li Chen had returned unexpectedly, his usual carefree smile replaced by a rare seriousness. From the moment he walked in, his eyes locked onto Ru and Wei sitting close on the velvet sofa. He approached with slow steps, clearing his throat. Wei, he said, voice low but firm. I see how close you've become with Ru. Wei didn't flinch. She's important to me. Chen's gaze darkened. Remember, I'm the one engaged to her. You're just filling in because I'm not around. Wei met his brother's eyes evenly. I'm not crossing any lines, but don't expect me to treat this like a game. Chen's lips curled into a warning smile. Don't forget your place. She's mine, or at least, she was meant to be. Don't get too comfortable. Wei stood, voice steady but calm. If I'm the one by her side, then maybe I'm the one who deserves that place. Chen's expression hardened. Watch yourself, Wei. You're treading on dangerous ground. As Chen turned and left the room, Wei's gaze lingered on Rui, who sat quietly, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the walls. Li Chen paced restlessly in his private study, the dim light casting long shadows across the walls lined with family portraits. His mind replayed the scene he'd witnessed just hours ago, Rui laughing softly as she brushed a stray lock of hair behind Li Wei's ear, her eyes warm and attentive. That was supposed to be his place. The memories of the past flooded back, the late-night talks, the gentle touches, the promises he had once made. Now, watching from afar, he felt a bitter ache twist inside him. How could she care so easily for his brother, the man who wasn't even meant to be part of her life? His fists clenched. The carefree nights he had once spent with Lu Mai, the wild parties and fleeting pleasures, suddenly felt hollow. What had he really wanted? Was it freedom? Or was it simply fear of admitting he loved Ruth and losing control? The sting of jealousy burned sharper with every thought. He realized, perhaps too late, that he had been blind. And now, as Wei and Rui grew closer, he knew he had to act before he lost everything. Lu Mai paced nervously. Her heart ached not for herself, but for Li Chen. She had watched from the sidelines as Ruth and Li Wei grew closer. At first, she was glad. Maybe now Li Chen would finally let go of Rui, and she could have him for herself, carefree, wild, and unbound by family ties. Yet, beneath her excitement, a shadow of jealousy crept in. She loved Li Chen deeply, even if he rarely noticed her feelings. When Li Chen entered the room, Lu Mai greeted him with a bright smile that barely masked her anxious thoughts. You seem tense, she said softly. He sighed. Wei is spending too much time with Rui. They're almost inseparable. Lu Mai's eyes gleamed. Maybe that's a good thing. If they grow closer, maybe the engagement will fall apart. Chen looked at her, surprised by her boldness. Are you really okay with that? She nodded firmly. I want you, Chen, free from all these chains. He smiled bitterly. I don't know if I can let go so easily. Lu Mai reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. Then let me help you. Together, we can make sure Rui understands where your heart truly lies. Chen's gaze darkened, torn between desire and duty. The dim light of the bar flickered as Lu Mai leaned closer to Li Chen, her eyes shining with conviction. You chose me, she said softly, reaching out to touch his hand. Not her. Li Chen looked conflicted but listened as she continued. She's not right for you, too fragile, too careful. You need someone who understands your world, someone like me. Lu Mai's voice dropped to a whisper. I love you, Chen, more than anyone else ever has. Let me help you, Lu Mai urged. Forget the doubts. Forget Rui. Chen's breath caught. I don't know if I can. She smiled, a promise and a challenge in her eyes. You can, and I'll be here when you're ready. In the quiet solitude of her room, Rui gazed out at the glowing cityscape, her mind swirling with emotions she struggled to name. Li Wei's attentive care had softened the edges of her guarded heart. His presence brought her comfort she hadn't known was possible. Yet beneath that warmth, A shadow of doubt lingered. The more she observed, the more she sensed something hidden, a truth just beyond her grasp. Piece by piece, the puzzle began to take shape. The man who had quietly stood by her was not who she first believed. Her heart raced as realization dawned. The man before her was indeed the brother she thought she knew, but also so much more. Determined, Rua clenched her fists. This wasn't the time for surrender. It was time to confront the secrets, to demand honesty, no matter the consequences. She whispered into the night air, "I will face the truth, and I will face him." The evening was calm, but Rua's heart pounded as she stood before Li Wei in the quiet study of the mansion. The flickering fireplace cast shadows on their faces, mirroring the tension in the room. "I know," Rua began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I know you're not who I thought you were." Li Wei's eyes searched hers, a mixture of surprise and resignation. "Why did you hide it?" she asked, taking a hesitant step closer. "Why pretend to be someone else?" He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "I wanted to protect you from the complications, from the family's expectations. But I deserve the truth," Rue insisted. "No more lies." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, Li Wei nodded slowly. "You're right. From now on, no more secrets." Their gazes locked, fragile trust beginning to weave between the cracks. Rui's heart was still pounding from her tense confrontation with Li Wei. The truth was out, but the battle wasn't over yet. Determined, she left the quiet study and headed straight to the other side of the mansion where Li Chen, the brother she had chased for 4 long years, was known to spend his nights. She found him lounging in the grand lounge, surrounded by luxury and careless laughter. His smirk faded only slightly when he saw her approach. "So, you finally found me," he said, voice smooth but edged with disbelief. Rui stood tall, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "I know everything now. About you, your brother, the lies." Li Chen laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You chased me for years, and I barely gave you a second glance." Her voice was steady, but fierce. "I loved you, even when you didn't care." He raised an eyebrow, amused yet irritated. "Love? You don't even know what that means." Rui took a deep breath. "Maybe not, but I know I love Li Wei, and I know what you are." His eyes darkened, jealousy flaring. "Now you love him? Funny how things change." Leaning forward, he whispered, "But guess what? Now I want you too." Rui's heart stuttered, not with joy, but fear. "You ran after me for years, and now I'm the one who holds the cards," he said coldly. "With the family's plans, you can't escape. You belong here." She clenched her fists. "I'm not a pawn to be played." Li Chen's laugh was hollow. "We'll see about that." As he turned away, Rui realized the fight for her heart and her freedom was far from over. The night air was thick with anticipation as Li Wei and Rui quietly slipped away from the grand estate. Their hands intertwined, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and hope. "We have to do this now," Li Wei whispered, "before anyone else can interfere." At the registry office, the clerk looked up with a curious smile as the couple presented their documents. Without hesitation, the ceremony was brief but binding. "We're married," Rui murmured, disbelief and relief swirling in her eyes. But the secret wouldn't stay hidden for long. The following days were stormy whispers in the halls, angry confrontations, and tense meetings between the two powerful families. Li Chen's voice thundered during one heated argument. "This marriage isn't just a scandal, it's an insult to our family." Yet Li Wei stood firm, eyes blazing with determination. "We did what we had to do. Ruth and I belong together. No one can take that away." The battles were fierce, but the marriage certificate was undeniable proof. Slowly, grudging acceptance began to seep through the cracks of tradition and pride. As the storm settled, Rui and Li Wei shared a quiet moment, their love stronger for having fought so hard to claim it. The grand study was heavy with tension as Li Chen faced Li Wei, desperation flashing in his eyes. "I want her back," Li Chen said, voice low but fierce. "She belongs with me." Li Wei's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Even if we separate someday, you will never be able to marry Rui." Li Chen clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. I won't lose her to you. Li Wei took a deep breath. The marriage certificate is signed. She's my wife legally and in every way that matters. Li Chen's expression darkened. Then I'll leave. But don't think this is over. Li Wei nodded. Maybe it's best you go. As Li Chen began packing, a silent tension lingered. The war for Rui's heart had ended, but the scars would remain. The morning sun streamed softly through the hospital window as Rui slowly opened her eyes. Colors burst into focus, details sharpened. After years of blurred vision, she could finally see clearly again. Her gaze found Li Wei, sitting by her side with a tender smile. Tears of relief and happiness filled her eyes. I can see you, truly see you, she whispered. Li Wei took her hand gently. And now, we can finally celebrate our wedding. A few weeks later, surrounded by family and friends, Ruth and Li Wei stood hand in hand in a beautiful garden filled with blossoms and laughter. Their secret union was now a joyful public celebration, a new beginning marked by love, hope, and the promise of forever. If this tale touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. More stories await, only on Drama Tales.